Hello. Before I start going over to Alabama, I'd like you to bring your attention to this. This is the North Carolina Citadel. You can see it's nicely below the surface. It's quite hard to reach, not that easy to hit. And here, in comparison, we have the Alabama Citadel. As you might notice, the Alabama Citadel extends all the way, almost halfway up to the deck. In fact, you might probably say it extends halfway up to the deck. Once more, North Carolina, very hard to hit. Alabama, very easy to hit. The reason I go over this is because I will be mentioning this quite a bit. Moving on to the ship itself, the Alabama. This ship is pretty much in its final form. The super tester version was the one that was balance tested a lot, so it's unlikely this ship will change at all before release. With that in mind, this ship really is pretty abysmal. First of all, well, I showed you Citadel. Of course, my biggest issue with this ship really is how contradicting many of the features of this ship are. Now, first of all, we start off the Citadel. The absolutely abysmally large Citadel that extends so high up from the water. That Citadel gets hit extremely easily. I've taken 25k damage from a New Mexico. I've spoken with Strangers, who's of course a super tester, and he told me he's lost 50k by being shot by a Fuso from across the map. From a Fuso, that's a tier 6. So we both have got the experience getting wrecked by a tier 6 battleship. And yeah, of course I believe him because, well, I definitively understand that. I've gotten one shot by a Grosse Kurfürst. In fact, if you get up-tiered in this ship, you have a horrible time because of this Citadel, because, well, ships can pen you through the deck into the Citadel, they can pen you from any angles into the Citadel, well, except from the front where they struggle. But overall, you take an abysmally insane amount of damage in this ship. In fact, even when you sit angled, you take a ton of HE damage in this ship. So the ship is not tanky at all, and because of that Citadel, you really can't brawl at all. The Citadel pretty much stops any sort of brawling, because as soon as you get into brawling range, someone is gonna get a broadside on you or a somewhat of an angle on you, and you're gonna eat a shit ton of Citadels. Okay. But then on the other hand, we have one of the big strengths of this Alabama, and that's that you can reach 50% torpedo protection. In comparison, I think the North Carolina has like 21% and the Amagi has 45%. So this ship can reach almost as much torpedo protection as the Amagi, 5% less. Now, of course, if you have great torpedo protection, then that's of course a feature that encourages brawling. Another feature is, well, not feature, but a drawback is the Sigma. It has exactly the same guns as the North Carolina, but unlike the North Carolina that has a 2.0 Sigma, which is quite a good accuracy, this ship has a 1.8 Sigma. Lesser is worse, significantly worse. So this ship is far less accurate. Once again, this is something that you would think would encourage brawling. Less accurate guns, you want to push in close, you want to brawl more, and great torpedo protection, you want to push in, you want to brawl, but then all of a sudden we get this absolutely abysmal Citadel that screws you over. In fact, size-wise, it's more compact than the North Carolina. It has a slightly better turning circle, slightly better rudder ship, not big differences, but slightly improved. It's in fact a shorter version of the North Carolina, a more compact version. And these are all things that, it's like the entire ship was designed around brawling. Like they took all the stats with brawling in mind. But the Citadel screws over those plans completely. It's too exposed, it's too large. It's like trying to brawl with an Iowa. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Even brawling in the North Carolina is extremely difficult because of how thinly armored the sides are. This one has slightly more armored, but it doesn't matter because the Citadel is so exposed. And the dispersion, it comes and goes. I'm sure this game is a particularly good game. First of all, you're against lower tiers, which is something you kind of need to be in this ship to have a good game. And I'm having good RNG with the dispersion, which is also something you kind of need to have in order to have a good game with this one. And The biggest issue really is that this ship gives up a lot of things for that torpedo belt, but torpedo belt isn't really that important if you know what you're doing. I mean, in order for torpedo belt to be as valuable, you need to be eating a lot of torpedoes every game. And I don't eat a lot of torpedoes, so all I'm seeing is a significantly weaker North Carolina for almost no trade-off at all in value. And other changes, well, anti-air, the long-range anti-air is about the same. The mid-range anti-air is worse than the North Carolinas. It's got slightly less HP. North Carolina is 66k, this is 63.3k. Not a big difference, but it does add up. So this ship, the Citadel kind of screws up all the plans. If it had the North Carolina Citadel of being below water, then I think this could be fairly interesting. I mean, yes, it could still get citadeled, but it wouldn't get citadeled by everything and so easily. I mean, getting wrecked by a tier 6 battleship because you showed a bit too much broadside is pretty ridiculous, especially when it can happen from across the map. And when you get up-tiered, oh my lord. I don't even want to experience what happens if a Yamato looks at this ship. I'm pretty sure once Yamato players learn what kind of citadel the ship has, they will be more eager to shoot at the Alabama than they will be to shoot at the Minotaur, because all that area to hit to citadel in a Yamato must be absolutely hilarious. We're gonna see a lot of devastating strikes on Alabama, so I can promise you that. So you're stuck with this really awkward ship that has all the features to make it a good brawler, but it doesn't have the durability to actually brawl. And ultimately that means, of course, that the ship is not very good. In fact, I would say it's pretty mediocre / bad. I mean, I have a hard time really calling any battleship straight up bad. Even the Dunkirk, which I consider inferior to many other T6 battleships, I still wouldn't straight up call it bad simply because it's a battleships, and battleships are inherently so ridiculously strong in this game. And it's kind of the same thing here. You can eat up a lot of cruisers, a lot of different ships. You have so much strength in it, but overall, if I had to compare it, I can't really think of any T8 battleship that would be worse than this. Because when it comes to brawling, Tirpitz, Bismarck, Amagi, they are all significantly better brawlers. Long range, North Carolina is significantly better thanks to the better accuracy, and of course less vulnerability to citadels. And mid-range, Amagi is probably the king of mid-range. Well, it kind of competes with North Carolina in that one. Both are extremely strong mid-range. This one, on the other hand, it eats massive damage from everything. It can be deleted. It doesn't have the accuracy. Even the firing angles aren't that good. The back turret doesn't fire that well. So this is not a premium I can recommend. This is absolutely not a premium I can recommend. It is not a good tier 8 battleship. It's mediocre. And honestly, if you want a good tier 8 US premium ship, buy the North Carolina and buy the premium camo on it, and it will be significantly better. You see that, like that dispersion, how it comes and goes? It's very much the story of this. In fact, I read a community contributor told me earlier today that he got killed by a hipper who rushed him and torped him, and the reason he died was because dispersion decided to miss all the shells at 3 kilometers. And that kind of can happen because the dispersion really comes and goes very heavily on this ship. I could show you a bunch of clips of me missing shells because of dispersion, but you're just gonna have to take my word for it. And the squishiness, well, once again, I could show you tons of clips, but I think that one starting intro where I showed you just how damn big this citadel is should tell you all you need to know about how squishy this ship actually is. So this ship is a mess of contradictions. It has advantages, or it has designs that seem to favor one playstyle, but then it has other designs that seem to make that playstyle impossible. And the torpedo belt is pretty much useless unless you end up being focused by a carrier, because I mean you kind of want to sit back in the ship because of the citadel size. So you might get focused by a carrier, but you already have the anti-air that the North Carolina has. Well, almost have it. So you're unlikely to be focused by a carrier anyway. So ultimately this great torpedo build that the Alabama has is going largely unused because you can't utilize it. It's a strength that is completely wasted on the ship because you have no real way of making use of it unless you're literally intentionally sailing into torpedoes, you can see, which is of course extremely stupid. So my key point is that the one big strength the ship has, the torpedo belt, is actually not much of a strength at all because you rarely, if ever, actually get to use it. So, well, this game ends. This was one of the better games, definitely one of the much better games. And the game ends with, what, 154k damage. I mean, I shot a few times at that Bismarck that was hiding in the back, but the game ended soon after, so not much worth watching there. The reason I got this much credits is, of course, I completed this Battle of Mars thing today, which gives you 1 million credits. A base XP, nice and all, and the ship can do well, but you need to get lucky with dispersion, as I was in this game, and you pretty much need to be the top tier ship. And when you play a T8, everyone should know by now that T8 premiums are by no means guaranteed to be the top ship. In fact, you will end up against high tiers quite a lot, and it can be extremely frustrating. So the reason I put this out, because I saw some other comments talking about how good this ship is, and honestly I heavily disagree. This is not a good premium, this is not a good battleship. This ship is just a mess. Anyway, that was all for me. I hope you enjoyed my preview, review, whatever of this ship. I'll talk to you guys later.